Hey, Jason, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hey, I'm super excited to be on first off, so I appreciate the opportunity. A bit about myself. I've been selling for close to 12 years now. I actually started selling as a freshman in college, running a house painting business. So I used to go door to door, and yeah, I had a door or two slammed in my face, that's for sure. But yeah, I did that through the spring and summer to like make money for school, and that was sort of my first like foray into sales. Prior to that, I wanted to be like a forensic scientist and get a bachelor's degree and work for the a city police department and all that good stuff. So that was, believe it or not, that got me really excited about sales, like doing the door to door and the cold calling and getting to meet with like homeowners and sell them a $3,000 to $10,000 paint job. That was super cool. So since then, though, my wife Sarah and I started a company, Blissful Prospecting, and what we do now is, and I sort of went through this pain point myself as a consultant and freelancer at the end of 2014 when I left my corporate job, was finding clients, right? I didn't really know how to find clients outside of word of mouth and referrals.
Yeah.
And I had just been to like my last meetup event that I was ever going to go to. I was living in Portland at the time, Portland, Oregon. And I was like, I get sold to more when I go to these events than I get the opportunity to just have a genuine connection. Right. And it's usually people that are selling like multi-level marketing products and stuff. And they'd be like, yeah, so I sell these skincare products, and it's like kind of insulting. So what are you trying to say, about my skin?
I just want you to buy something.
Yeah. But
complexion.
Yeah. So that was why we started Blissful Prospecting, was just, I noticed that all of the outbound stuff that was getting talked about was really geared towards, if you're this huge corporation, with a ton of salespeople, like how do you scale this out? Or if you're selling enterprise and that sort of thing. And we wanted to come up with something that would like work for, the individual salesperson, for them to do, or a small business with a couple sales reps, or where the owner might be doing a lot of sales. And that's what we do now is help those types of people with everything up to doing it for you. And, coming up with the strategy, mining the accounts, doing the list building, et cetera, to teaching people how to do it as well.
Because it is kind of like the hardest part of selling,
Mm-hmm.
because I think everybody likes the engagement part. Like
Yeah.
have a voluntary conversation.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to like the rejection.
Yeah, it's tough. And the thing that I don't know, I still do this even though I've been selling for so long, is it's really easy to take rejection personal. And if you do prospecting and selling, if you do it right and you're actually doing your research, the majority of the time should be spent on making sure the account that you're going after is the right one and they actually have a need for what you're doing, and the prospect is the right contact at that company. If you do the research on the front end, you're really not going to get too many people that are like really, super angry that you're reaching out to them. They'll just be like, hey, I appreciate the content that you shared. It's now is not a good fit, or we're not interested. So we rarely get people that like really brutally reject us if you're doing that research on the front end.
So you kind of fell in love with the idea of, you were pretty much working for yourself when you're doing the door-to-door stuff, or did you have a company you were working for?
Yeah, so I was working for a company called College Works Painting.
Okay.
Yeah, so they hire about 3,000 college students every year, and what they do is they put you in charge of running it's basically like a franchise. So you run a branch. So what they do though is like you don't do any of the painting. You have to hire painters. So at the very beginning in the spring, you're just selling because you're not doing any painting until after school. So they actually taught us to hire what they called marketers. So we would teach people how to go door to door with us, and it was actually very sophisticated, their training. So we had a lot of scripts. The sales training was really good. They talked about needs-based selling and how to ask good questions, how to not to be a pushy a-hole, with a homeowner, because that stuff doesn't work when you're inside someone's house. Like people hate that, right? So it was very systemized actually, and it really laid a good foundation for what we do now with prospecting, because one of the big lessons they taught me at the very beginning, because I just thought I could go to any neighborhood and if the houses were appealing, they'd be interested in painting. And lo and behold, not every house that needs painting can actually afford it. And one of the things they called scouting territories, this is very similar to like how you research accounts in B2B, was going into the neighborhood and looking for things like, hey, what kind of cars are these people driving? Are the lawns, are they taking good care of the lawn? If every house in the neighborhood needs paint, it's probably not a good neighborhood. They
Right.
probably can't afford to do it or don't care about it. So there's little things like that that were like really helpful at the beginning. And then the pitch was, it's kind of weird because I can look back on this now and see that that helped. But the pitch was, you're not trying to sell the painting services at the door. You're just trying to sell an estimate, a free estimate, right? The opportunity to talk with them.
Yeah.
I think that's another important prospecting lesson is like we try to sell our service or product in our prospecting efforts when, dude, you're just trying to sell the appointment. That's all you need. Earn the right to sell the person by prospecting well, asking good questions, giving value, and the person will give you an opportunity to sell, but you have to earn that. And I learned that as looking back as a freshman in college, which is really interesting how house painting and it connects with B2B and like what we're doing now. It's pretty funny.
Well, you were probably on commission, or was it commission only?
Straight commission, actually,
Yeah.
which was, I wasn't really scared, which was interesting, because I needed money to pay for school, right? But I ended up doing really well. I made about $27,000 between the spring and summer for school, and ran one of the largest branches, largest branch in Oregon. I finished around like top 15-ish, I think it was, in the nation in sales. So I did really well. Not everyone does that well, but yeah, it was straight commission. So it kept me hungry. And like the big thing that I always liked was, because we did all of our estimates on the weekend, all of our sales appointments, my goal was always to do 10 estimates every weekend. There were 2 hours a piece usually.
Whew.
So that was like how you know you had a good sales weekend, is if you're stacking each day with about 8 to 10 hours worth of sales appointments. So yeah, it was fun.
What's working for you today? You seem to be doing a lot with video.
Yeah. I think so what we ran into, just to kind of give you the foundation for why we're doing video and like why it works, I know that because you're a big proponent of video,
Yeah.
is that when we first started Blissful Prospecting, we were a cold email only company, and then we started doing LinkedIn, but they were siloed services. So you could either hire us to do cold email or do LinkedIn. And what we noticed, there's actually a really interesting study. Have you heard of the Bridge Group?
Yeah.
Yeah, they put out some really cool content, and they studied about 500 B2B companies that do outbound. And what they noticed is the trend, is no surprise probably to anyone listening to this, that the number of quality appointments for SDRs is going down per day, but the number of attempts is going up. And
what does that tell you?
Yeah. So, and really what they showed you, because they broke down the technology people are using, and they're like, well, it's because everyone's basically just doing email and cold calling.
Yeah.
And when you don't add other channels into that, like video, like LinkedIn, instant, voicemail drops or whatever your preference is, if you're not doing multi-channel, you're missing out. And what we noticed in the data is that people would literally open up emails dozens of times. They'd be forwarding it around within their company, but we wouldn't get a response to that email, and they wouldn't pick up the phone when we tried calling them. So what we learned is that sometimes they need a little extra push in a personalized video, basically saying, hey, I wanted to reach out. And I think this is an important lesson too, prioritizing your prospecting. So only do the extra effort on the people that are actually engaging with what you're doing. But like, hey, wanted to put a face to the email, do something a little bit different here. I was reaching out because of this. And you get straight into your pitch. And we can talk specifically what that pitch is here if you want to. But that little extra bit of personalization, and you can't just send a video that's like really crappy. Like it has to be good. That little extra nudge is what we've been helping our clients do. And it really helps get the prospect over the edge and actually say, okay, great video. Like, let's chat.
No, you said good video. What I heard or what I see is you can't do a spam video, meaning the same video to 100 people. I think.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that. The whole point of doing video is to have personalization. And if you're not personalizing your prospecting outreach, you're playing a numbers game, and you're going to have to send out thousands of emails to prospects to get the appointment numbers that you want.
Right. And I think you made the great point with the research, in that when the attempts go up and the response goes down, the attempts is causing the response to go down.
Yes.
And what do people do? They keep more attempts instead of better attempts. It's what I call sales math. Talk to any sales leader, and if 50 cold calls don't work, try 100. Why don't you try
sounds exhausting.
5 good ones that work?
Well, it's kind of like if you go to the gym and you lift weights and you're trying to, let's say that you're trying to improve your bench press, for example, just lowering the weight and doing more reps and just doing more sets, that's not the best way to build strength, right? There's lots of different things that you can do. You can look at the pulling muscles. There's, pushing fast and then releasing slow on the way down. There's all kinds of different things you can do to get those muscles firing and feeling something different. Different types of chest exercises, right? Cold calling and prospecting works the same way. Just increasing the volume is not going to do it. It's going at different angles, trying different things, reducing the volume, more personalization. Like that's the stuff that really works. And I'm sure you've noticed this when you play that volume game, the type of people that respond to that are not really great clients.
It is. And people just think you're giving up or you're not working hard enough. And I think the exercise thing is a good thing, but in pretty much every part of life, it's doing it in a smarter way, a more effective way.
Yep.
And that takes brain work. It takes getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Creativity. And that part of selling is kind of ignored today. A lot of people don't talk about it. Even with your example of prioritizing the neighborhoods when you were selling painting. You worked and focused your time on the most likely people to buy.
Yep.
Not just grinding it out.
Yeah. And that's unfortunate if you're a salesperson. Sometimes you have a sales manager that's saying, hey, you got to hit your calls,
Yeah,
so you might have to
come up with something creative, right? It's easy. They do twice as much.
Yeah. And what I would suggest if you're that person and you're listening to this and you're like, well, dude, my boss is like, I got to make 50 cold calls a day or 100 cold calls a day. What I would suggest doing, take 30 minutes in the morning or maybe in the evening and prep for that day or the next day if you're doing it in the evening and say, hey, I know what accounts I'm going to go after, but what if I just test something with 5 or 10 accounts per day? And I'm going to send a video to them right after I try to call them. Yeah. Just try that and see how it works. And what you can do is you can do an internal case study for yourself. You can go to because your sales manager, all they care about is you hitting your quota. They really don't care about the number of calls. If you're hitting the quota, that's all they care about. Yeah, so you could bring a case study to them and say, hey, so-and-so, actually what I did last month is I sent 20 videos and actually got 10 calls set off those and 4 of them turned into clients compared to this amount of effort that I spent just hammering the phones.
Because we really are gamblers, meaning that if you take your target income and you divide it by the number of hours you work, you're putting chips on those activities, right?
I like that. That's a great analogy.
Because no gambler goes into Vegas and runs around the tables as fast as they can, right? Putting $5 bets. No, they pick what they know how to do best, Jack, Black, or whatever it is. And if we turn that part of our brain off and just do the grind, we're missing the real point.
Yeah.
So what do you call a good video?
So a good video is, and another way of thinking of this too, is you're giving the person a chance to empathize with you. And I use the word empathy because, men, I'm including myself in this, we struggle empathizing. This is why sometimes I think women pick up sales a lot faster than men.
They do.
But if you don't give the person a chance to empathize with you and actually show some feeling and some personality, like you're just another person reaching out to them. So there's a couple things with video that are extremely important just beyond the pitch. And I'll get into like how we coach the pitch here in a second. But a few things that, and depending on what software you're using, it should allow you to put a thumbnail into the video. Sure. And the most important thing is right away, I like to hold a whiteboard or a piece of paper and write the person's name on it. You should be doing that at the very minimum. If you have something more creative, you can do that, but show the person that it's personalized. So that's the very first thing. You need to show them that it's personalized so they actually click on the email. So sales copy, is all about getting the person to convert and do the thing you want them to do. Well, that's the only thing you want them to do in the video. So I like to put my hand up and wave and smile and then look at the camera, make eye contact. And that's just a good tip for video calls in general so that the person feels like you're talking to them instead of to a screen, right? Yeah. So very first thing, thumbnail's got to be great. Smile, put some personality, be excited. So second, when you're actually giving the pitch, it needs to be about 30 to 60 seconds. And you need to think that this person, if they've given you the time of day to actually click on this, like don't waste their time. So what you want to avoid doing is just getting straight into, here's our products, here's our services. I feel like we could help this way. So the pitch needs to be you showing them that you did your research, giving 1 to 2 sentences on why you're reaching out, and then a quick call to action. Yeah. So if I was doing this for Blissful Prospecting, and we sell prospecting services, I would do something like this. I'm just going to use a random company, whatever comes to mind. Let's see. Let's use, here, I'll just use a random name too. Hey, Caleb, this is Jason with Blissful Prospecting. Thought I'd do something a little bit different here and put a face to the email by sending over a quick video. I was reaching out. First off, I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing at ABC Consulting. The testimonial that you got from that recent client that you accomplished this with was like really great. But I was reaching out because we actually work with similar consulting companies to you guys. And I noticed that sometimes they have a challenge of getting the attention of potential dream clients or prospects they really want to work with. So I wasn't sure if that was a challenge of yours, but if it is, we might be able to help you out. So I left a few times that we could chat in the email. Let me know if that's something you're interested in. And if this is not a good fit for you, feel free to let me know that as well. Either way, keep up the good work. Looking forward to chatting. Yeah. Do something like that. I think that was maybe about 40, 45 seconds.
Yeah. And that's probably just as easy to do than it is to type.
I actually like video, and I know that you create a lot of video content too. I think video is actually easier to do than actually typing out stuff.
Well, so. We were talking about this a little bit, and even my walking and talking videos versus a blog.
Yeah.
If I got 150 views of a blog post per day, I'd be excited.
Yeah.
And I hear people putting a week into getting 11.
Uh-huh.
And when you can get 1,000 times that, you're like, and there's no effort, right?
Yeah.
You're doing something else while you're doing it. But I love the video, and I think it gets you much closer to them.
Mm-hmm.
They know what you look like, they know what you sound like, and they get a sense of your personality.
Yep.
And you don't get that in an email.
Yeah, you really don't. And the thing is that just along the same theme, you got to have some really great copywriting chops to have really compelling emails. And I think one thing that we tend to do is rely too much on email. You need to treat it as a channel. Video is a channel. LinkedIn is a channel. Calling is a channel. Don't make it about the email. Make it about doing multi-channel and like getting a chance to put your face out there and your personality. Because the biggest thing that a vendor or any potential prospect is going to analyze whether they want to spend 30 minutes with you on a phone call is, do I like this person? Am I going to enjoy talking to this person for 30 minutes?
Yeah. Is it all about you, or do you really understand what I'm up against and what I want to accomplish? And are you going to hound me for the rest of my life?
Yeah. You're going to put me in your CRM, and then am I going to continue to receive automated
into that sales enablement cadence? Just the robocall of email today, right?
Yeah.
And the people who are doing that are just, you're alienating your market. Mm-hmm. You're not engaging your market.
Yep.
And think about it. It's like, who really influences you? It's people you know, like, and trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
A complete stranger going from unknown to trust ain't happening.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how did you feel when you were knocking at the door? People were like, who knocks on doors, right?
Yeah.
It's either neighbors, rarely, strangers, poor people, people checking to see if anyone's home. It's kind of not only an interruption, it's unscheduled. It's
yep.
Right. And email and cold calling are a little bit like that.
Yeah.
So, and then to ask for something, it's a lot.
It's a lot to ask. And this is like what you're saying is that empathy piece. And you have to put yourself into the prospect's shoes and look at, hey, the person I'm reaching out to is probably getting solicited dozens of times a day from people exactly like me. Yeah. So if I don't appear to be someone adding value, helping them with their challenges, if I don't understand like who they are and what they're trying to accomplish, what a day in the life of their job looks like. I mean, this is all stuff that you can research on Google now. If you're reaching out to CFOs and selling finance type stuff, like just Google like biggest challenges CFOs face. and it'll tell you, like, there's so much great content, but without that, you can't really put together compelling messaging.
Yeah. And what prompted you to go to a video? Was it just an experiment, or did somebody encourage you to do it, or?
So a couple things. We work with a lot of outside resources to help us with blissful prospecting, like consultants and things like that. And these consultants kept telling us that, hey, you got to do multi-channel. That was the big thing that we were learning. Video seemed to be, and then we're also looking for something that we could do for our clients. So video is like one of those things that, like, they have to record the video, but we can make it really easy for them to do that. We can coach them on the pitch, give the prospects info, and tell them exactly what to say. And if they're good on video, they can wing it for 30 to 60 seconds because they have all the information right there, and they don't have to go hunting, and then we'll throw it into the email and follow up with the prospect for them. So what prompted video is really, I've done a lot of public speaking, and it seemed like the go-to for me, because I'm like, when I'm prospecting to find clients, I'm not really actually showcasing, me either. If I'm just sending an email, like, what's the easiest way to do that? And I noticed that Vidyard especially has a lot of content, and CoVideo puts out a lot of content. Loom is putting out, all these places are putting out a ton of content on how to use this for sales. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's not just a marketing thing. You can actually use this for sales. So that was like really a big thing that prompted it as well. Was it seems like a lot of companies are actually starting to use this for sales and marketing. And the whole account-based it's like sales and marketing are almost kind of morphing into one department now when it comes to that sort of stuff.
Well, I mean, especially when you have to communicate, not just a sales introduction, whole pitch, but actually communicate something that's a little bit more complex that has a visual element. Like I had a thing with one of my courses. It's like entering the coupon code, right? And you would think it was obvious, but about 1% of the people were just hitting enter. And of course, it charges you because you didn't enter the coupon code.
Yeah.
Trying to describe that in text is one thing. Showing somebody, in more than just a picture was very different. Yeah.
And one thing that you can do, with software like CoVideo that's really cool is, like, you can use it to help you with the sales process too. So, like, one of the things that I'll do is, because oftentimes what's really hard these days is you're not always engaging with, like, who is the ultimate decision maker. And it can be hard to get that person to hop on a call also like this, especially if you're selling virtually, which most of us are these days. So one thing you can do when you send over the proposal and, like, your services deck or whatever it is, instead of sending over the recording of the 45-minute, 60-minute Zoom call, because their CEO is not going to spend an hour watching that, you can put together a 2-minute clip that's like the highlights. Yeah. So I do this a lot, actually. And you can put the highlights, you can introduce yourself, say hi. Again, they get to see who you are. And I guarantee you, no one that's pitching to them is actually doing that.
No, they're not doing it. Everyone's lazy.
Yeah, and the person that you talk to, like that director of sales or whoever you're pitching, is not going to be as good at selling you as you are at selling you. So that video gives you a chance to do that too. So you can do it when doing scope of work, sending out proposals, whatever it is, where you're not actually talking to the entire group of people that are going to be making that decision. How cool is it when they're sitting in a group and they can pull up a 2-minute video and it just summarizes everything that you talked about during the couple hours you've spent talking with that initial person?
Yeah, I think there's so much more you can do with it. And I see comments when I share a video about video email, and you hear, like, old school reps go, that'll be the day I do that. And it's like, is it out of shyness, or is it just out of laziness? Or I can't imagine a sales rep finding a more powerful tool and ignoring it. And I saw this with LinkedIn 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'd be like, I now have my Rolodex online. And reps would be, oh, that's just for finding jobs. And it's like, no, it's a lot more than that.
But the reason for that, Brian, I believe, is that, like, you're very comfortable and confident in yourself. And, like, you're not afraid to show empathy and, like, put yourself out there. And I think that if you're too afraid with video, that's exactly what it is. It's fear. You're fearful that it's going to look weird, or that a prospect's not going to like it, or they're going to share it, because I'm just going by my fears of not wanting to do it. Like, they're going to send it around their company because it's so bad and make fun of me, when none of that's the case. You're just fearful.
But compare it against some of the, I mean, against a text email, I totally agree. But compare it against a cold call. I'm like, I haven't cold called in a long time. Why? Because it's just not that effective.
Yep.
You know, and if it works for you, I'm not trying to discourage anybody from it if you love it. But as far as effectiveness, near zero.
Yeah. And you're playing the numbers game, right? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, cold calling is only to make to give the opportunity to leave a voicemail, to make your email, to increase the response rate on your email.
Right. Pretty much. And compare that against a video email where they get to see you, and within a minute, you're kind of getting to know the person.
Yeah.
And getting a sense.